Hello everyone, today we're going to cover is your design notebook. How do you maintain a design notebook, what a design notebook is, and basically document your ideas. We're going to do it like grammar. What, where, when, where, and why. And the more important on this one is how, actually. So what is a design notebook? Design notebooks come in many flavors. Let's go over what is not a design notebook. Portfolio, not a design notebook. Binder, with loose sheets of paper in it. That's what happens all the time, not a design notebook. Sometimes people use these little guys as design notebooks. I tend to not prefer them because they actually don't have numbered pages. You can number them at the bottom, but they actually don't give you enough space to write down ideas or drawings, and then you're writing really small and you can't explain it. This is a good example of a design notebook. It's bound. You can buy them in different places, but they're numbered pages, and basically what you're looking for is that the design notebook has to be bound. It's size that you're comfortable with, so design notebooks, one small size, larger size, there's even larger ones after this, so you have to just be comfortable with it. Include details once you buy a design notebook. Put your name on it. So this notebook, if it gets lost or if someone's grading it, no one's going to know how to get it back to you. This one only has one little label. Now, a design notebook ideally has a title on the side. This is why I actually prefer hardbound design notebooks. And I put all my information inside, usually in the first cover page, because if my design notebook gets lost, I would like to actually find it, or somehow for it to find me. Where do you get design notebooks? Design notebooks are not hiding like Batman. They're not behind a mask. Usually the more expensive place that you can find them is a university bookstore. Lab research supplies, most of the time they're free because your lab research group already purchases them. And the one that's semi-expensive is online. Just go on Amazon, put design notebook, and you can have a plethora of things that pop up. Most of the time they're ranging between $10 and $20 depending. Some of them have carbon copies in the back. You just have to pick what you like. Why do you want a design notebook? This is actually the beauty of the design notebook. You really want to just document your ideas. This is a picture from Henry Darcy's 1856 design notebook, and this is the beauty of it. And when he was actually doing the experiment, he came up and he said, a comment in it is, this is not intuitive. This law that I'm getting from the experiments, it's not intuitive. And that actually, several people have written papers about it, but that's actually the idea of a design notebook. It's not to capture only the great points when you're doing research. It's to capture the failures, but also to capture the ah moment, the eureka moment. So we're documenting ideas, we're identifying problems. They're really important for peer review when you're passing it along. There's no way that someone else is going to get all the information from your head. So a good thing, especially during peer review and you're working with a big group, is to put all your ideas in and then you exchange notebooks. And then someone can say, oh, that's a really nice idea. So this way, with the design notebooks, you can actually avoid someone who's really quiet with a really great idea and having that idea to be overlooked. So this is actually a really, really good tool for peer review. Data tracking, IP tracking, comments. But the best thing is, how do you keep it now? So now you know everything that needs to go into it. I like to actually just put it in this form in the slide where I encompass all of the deterministic engineering process, and I say, I have to capture all of this into my design notebook. I want the process, I want the calculations, I want the drawings, I want everything in there, such that if there's another engineer that's coming in behind me and I somehow disappear, I turn into fairy dust, I will actually allow for the next engineer or give him the same tools to follow my experiment. And this is really great in academia when someone says, oh, you duplicated a continuous motion machine that can last 30 million cycles. You want to actually be able to say, under these conditions, A, B, C, D. And sometimes if you can't duplicate your experiments, you go back to your design notebook, what was different. Now let's give you some examples of good and bad and not so good design notebooks, but most of them you're going to see the rating at the top of it. So this is actually one of my master's design notebooks, so I can be really mean to this person because he cost me 3 months of time because I actually didn't keep a really good design notebook back then. My design notebooks, this is a page from it. I had the date in it, I didn't have a signature on the bottom, I kind of wrote the equation, and this was my list of things to do. This cost me 3 months, this poor design notebook because I didn't write some information that I needed when I was taking data. And when I spoke with the professor said, so you should calculate this, which would have been really, really easy had I written all the information down. But I was careless. So that was 3 months of recollecting all the data and actually getting those numbers. So please don't let that happen to you. More information in your design notebook is better. But don't make them a grocery list. This is actually a list related to my research. You can't put everything in it. This is actually a much better example, and that's why I got an 8 out of 10 on analysis and actually calculations that should be going into your notebook. He has a little drawing of what it's about. He has the fundamental equations that are included inside, comments on it, this is really great for looking at a design notebook. It's clean. You know, sometimes you don't want to be crossing stuff like this, but someone that says, this is way too thick, that means he's considering the manufacturing, he's considering the applications in the process, and you can follow the train of thought. We'll probably flex less because, and it gives the reasons for it. This is all great things that you should be including in your design notebook. Here's another one, and this one has also an 8 out of 10. But the drawing speaks for itself. It doesn't have to be a CAD drawing. It doesn't have to be something that you're spending 20, 30 minutes trying to get it. If an engineer looks at this, well, this looks like a gear insisting bevel gear, and these are the degrees of freedom that they're trying to get. They understand that they have to zoom into that section and have it bend somehow. This is a ESD knife, and the ESD knife is just a tip. This is the endoscope behind it. So someone who knows the industry or just knows the general project can come in and look at this as, aha, that's what they're trying to do with this. Here's another one. This is actually a okay example of a table where they actually have the content in the top and says, okay, this is X, Y, Z. These are things to do. These are the setup of the system, and it also has some random comments. This one could be cleaner. And this one's actually one of mine again. So I can tell you, I need to do work on this as well. But now on this one, it's not as bad as the first one. And this is all learning experience. When you do their first design notebooks, you're going to come out and you're going to say, well, it's good enough. Eventually, you're going to suffer through a couple of pains, and it's like, oh, it's much easier to find the data. If I label it, it's much easier for me to follow up. Most of the design notebooks, I come back, and it's 2 years afterwards, and I can find them. This is a FEA analysis that was put in one of the students' design notebooks. Just prints it out, puts it in. Attached to this is also the content of what was used in the model. So this is really great. As an engineer, you should also include all the calculations. How will you comment on this and say, well, the basic model is a flexure design. This is how we develop on it. And you should also be able to see that on the design notebook. Why did they go finite element analysis? Why didn't they do the basic analysis? Well, it was too complex. These were the boundary conditions. And you should be able to get all of that from looking at their design notebook. And this is just a small section of it. This one is a section of an experiment modeling. So you saw an FEA analysis. This is one where the analysis is trying to be set up. Someone who's coming in and looking at the finite element analysis, they can say, well, I don't really trust it. But if you have something like this in your design notebook, that's just a small schematic saying, look, everything in the middle acts as little springs. Everything in the section here is little squares. There's a flow diagram. I can basically understand what they're trying to model just from looking at one page in their design notebook. I don't have to know exactly the details of their research. I just have to understand the simple model. This is actually one great thing for design notebooks is your experiment setup. As a PhD or as a master's student, you start at the very beginning setting up your experiment, wiring diagrams, electrical, what are my pressure sensors, what are the data sheets. You come back 2 years afterwards and you have to make a modification. You have a 9-pin, in this case, D sub-connector, and whoa, I forgot which cable is which. So you go back to your design notebook, and this is actually different iterations for me. I came in the first time and I came in with one color. I came in with blue, and then I wrote everything that I wanted in purple. As I built up my experiment, I have references in future pages that say, refer back to page 52. And it goes here, and I change some of the cabling, but this is my main master document. When you do this, make sure to change colors. Make sure you date the document, say, when have I made the last change? And this is actually an asset. You don't want to make sure to connect the power to the power, not the power to your system, because you can easily kill a measurement tool such as a flow meter or a pressure sensor. And that is not a good thing when some of those can actually range in the cost between $1,000 and $5,000, and you have to justify it to your advisor that you didn't do this, you didn't catalog it. Here's another one. This is actually much better, and this is one of my more recent ones, and this is what I'm keep trying to iterate. It's a learning experience. Like everything else, you first learn how to crawl before you can walk, before you can run. Data's on the top. I'm still, pretty bad about it. I'm not signing my design notebooks. But you can tell by just looking at this of here's the parts that you need to order if you're going to duplicate this experiment. This is some of the things that we're considering, and this is the layout on it. The use of color helps, but it's not always required. You also have little comments here of what I need to do it in the SOLIDWORKS model, but this is actually more than enough than what you need. So in conclusion, main thing of design notebooks are document as you go. Don't write something down in a loose sheet of paper saying, I am going to go back and put it cleaner in my design notebook. You're going to forget some ideas. You're going to forget to include the thought process behind it. Record contributions of others. You're great, but someone else may have a really great idea that contributes to your research, and you really want to give them credit for it. That's all about the engineering. If you're in a peer review process and someone writes in your notebook, oh, this is a really great idea, consider doing this design. You want to have that in record and say, when you're presenting, hey, this was Bill's idea that came up with this. Really awesome. This is how I followed up on it. And this really comes well for presentations, master's, PhD presentations, to really thank the others. Include your comments. Sometimes I get really weird data and I write, oh, this data really doesn't make sense. Okay, how can I come up with the idea that, is it fundamentals? Is it an experiment? Is it me that I forgot to wire something correctly? And design notebook is great because you go behind it and say, okay, it was the wiring diagram. It wasn't the analysis. And this is how you make discoveries. Make sure you include pros and cons. And this is actually more in the engineering approach. You want to say, this is good because X, Y, Z. This is bad because X, Y, Z. Let's say you're doing research and you have it for one application where, let's say that it's fluid dynamics and the Reynolds number is turbulent. What would someone have to do if the Reynolds number is laminar in order to actually follow your same thought process? So you're actually documenting how you think and not just for this specific project. Someone should be able to come in and say, I have a whole different application for my research. I'm going to read his thesis, but 200 years from now, it's going to be, I'm curious if the design notebook is still around. And sometimes they're kept. So it would really be great. For Henry Darcy, it actually worked out because he came up with the law of permeability. And we still use it today, over 150 years afterwards. And having those little things in your design notebooks to say, this is not intuitive, but this is how the law behaved. Looking back as an engineer, it gets you back to a child moment. And that gets us back to the main rule, which is they serve to archive the system. You keep it over a long periods of time. It's not as permanent as a thesis, but for me as a researcher, there are things that I've done 2-3 years ago that I would always like to say, oh, I really did it that way. Let me see if I can produce it. Or if a friend is doing similar research, I can say, here, follow this thought process. This is how I got there. Well, that is Design Notebooks 101. Well, and thank you for your time.